Mike Mew, it is lovely to have you on.
Pleasure.
Now you are facing the orthodontics community. You are going up against what seems to be this tidal wave of orthodontists who have it out for you, who don't want to debate you, who want to take you down, and who want to take away your license.
Yes.
Can you give us a little introduction on who you are and what you do?
So I'm an orthodontist. In fact, I'm one of the select group of third generation orthodontists, and I practice in a very different method. I'm approaching this whole concept of crooked teeth and malaligned faces, should we call it? Because a lot of people have surgery as well as just having teeth straightened for a completely different viewpoint. And the place where I always start is, why are teeth crooked? I think that's a very important question to ask in any science, particularly in an area of medicine, because medicine's supposed to be about treating the causes of the problem. And it's my real concern here that we're not treating the causes of the problem. We're seeing this problem, crooked teeth, as a disease. And I'm saying it's not really a disease itself. It's a symptom of something else. Put simply, faces that grow well tend to have, think about all the people who have really good facial form, architecture, and they tend, not always, but tend to have straight teeth. Look at the people with really bad facial growth. It's unfortunate, but some people's faces just don't grow as well. And they tend to have crooked teeth. And often they have jaws that don't line up and aren't in the right places. They're the ones needing this type of treatment. Until this point, we've always imagined, and I think it's very much in the human consciousness, that the way your face grows is genetic. It's the hand that you're dealt with. That's it. And in a way, I'm going up against both this natural assumption within culture and common thinking and a whole medical profession who are seeing that this is all genetic and there's nothing you can do about it. So if we think about the way orthodontics is done, teeth that are crooked are made straight, often, but not always, by taking teeth out, and sometimes by doing surgery to the face to correct the face into better positions.
Which can involve, I believe, breaking the face open. Like I knew a guy in high school who had a terrible overbite, and his face was just broken open and restructured. I mean, it's quite an invasive traumatic surgery.
Sometimes. Oh, this is big surgery. I mean, this is proper life-threatening surgery. It's a big taking, and one of my biggest criticism of it, after 10 years, it's amazing how much of it has relapsed. We're talking about 50% of this effect of this surgery has gone back after 10 years. If you look in 3-4 years, you don't see very much relapse, but over time it goes back, because what was causing the problem in the first place? One of the examples of what I'm saying that our ancestors had really tough food, really, really tough food. So we used our muscles massively. And if you use your jaw muscles, I've got strong jaw muscles, I've got a strong jaw. Yeah, that's related. And how do you get strong jaw muscles? But will you use them? This is a situation of use it or lose it. People are getting blocked noses. You have to hang your mouth open because you need to breathe. Even when your nose then clears, you now have your mouth hanging open. Your tongue's down from the roof of the mouth.
I did
and
that,
if you have these two things, you've got weak muscles and you're hanging your mouth open, your face gets longer. You've seen someone who's had a stroke. What happens to them? What happens to one side? You know that's true. And remember, a stroke is only the sort of surface musculature. I've seen people who have had road traffic accidents or other things, and they've had power muscles damaged, and it is profound. You see how the face changes dramatically. It not only is dramatic, it's very, very predictable, and it's really quite rapid. So, we know these things happen, and yet still somehow we want to believe that our facial form, that, the image that looks back to you from any mirror in the world, is genetic. It's you, it's your identity. People don't want to think about this thing as being changeable. And of course, that's very much suited the orthodontic industry that is making you better. The idea is that they're going to force the teeth to be in a straight position. They put braces on, saying that, that's, if you want to do that, that's okay. It's your choice. But people need to know that this is they need to know the truth. They need to know their options. They need to know where this treatment that's being recommended. I've had one girl who said that every other child in her class was having orthodontic treatment. Since I was treating her with orthotropics, the system I use, that means every single person in her class was having some form of treatment. And just because it is everyone, don't imagine that this is quite an invasive therapy with significant potential risks.
And I think the biggest indicator for me, the thing that drew me to you the most, is that if you look at cultures that are, many African cultures, or I believe many cavemen, they don't have like problems with orthodontics. They have straight teeth, they have strong jaws, and you can see this in photos of like.
Okay, I want to be very clear here. There ain't nothing genetic in this. This is environmental. But people who have lived much more natural, holistic lives have better facial form. Walking off the African Serengeti, stands up fantastically. Really good bones, good architecture. You have the correct architecture, a face works well. And of course, I'm not just talking about the teeth here. Wisdom teeth, lack of space for teeth, having other teeth taken out, crooked teeth or needing surgery, are all problems associated with faces that aren't growing well, that don't have good architecture. A face that grows well works well. A face that doesn't grow as well doesn't work as well. And of course, I think that we're hardwired to be attracted to healthy people. This was, remember, a lot of what we think of Charles Darwin's theories of evolution actually sort of came from his grandfather, Erasmus Darwin. One of the big things that Charles really did add to the pile of knowledge that wasn't his grandfather's was the theory of mate selection. So the theory of mate selection is why you choose your partner. Everyone in Hollywood has come to Hollywood because they've got something to do with acting. We take 50% of that is, let's say arbitrarily, is an ability to act. 50% of it may be luck on average. So probably some people it's complete luck, and for some people it's complete talent. It's a variation. But if they all have children together, whatever race mixing pot that we've created, the bias, the one thing they all share, let's say, is an ability to act. So you've only got 3, 4, 5 generations, and we're approaching 3 now. You start to create an acting race of people. Complete mix of what we old style genetics, because it's this mixing pool. But here's mate selection in action, and you could say the same things going on within the medical profession, same things going on within the sport professions, which I think is probably even more interesting. It's there's so much we could be talking about. But my interest here is faces, because everyone's got a face. And I'm saying that the way your face grows is going to have really big impacts to your life. Crooked teeth, it's the icing on the cake. You know, people don't die from crooked teeth, but if your face doesn't grow well, you can get sleep apnea.
Which
and you can get these
absolutely
big problems. Like sleep apnea. Well, this is where it really gets controversial, because the viewpoint from modern orthodontics at the moment is that you can't change facial form. Well, now I'm gonna drill down on that a little bit, because people are saying you can't change it positively, but well, they're saying you can't change it positively because they haven't been able to do it. There have been lots and lots of studies where they've tried to make jaws grow. I think that's a little bit of a massive oversimplification and a lack of understanding of what's actually happening. And I would love to have any form of engagement with any orthodontic professor on the planet. You know, please bring it on. This is the problem.
Debate Mike Mew.
You know, any professor on the planet of orthodontics, please have a chat with me. This is what we lack. You know, unless we get this scientific engagement going, how are we going to find answers? You know,
I heard you talk on Jaw Hacks, I think his name is, and he was. I remember you saying that the orthodontists just won't talk to you. It's not like they'll debate you. It's not like they've debated you.
No, not at all. No, they won't talk with. None of the rebels are ever allowed to present. You know, if we try and prevent papers, it's just it's this crazy. You know, I describe the situation. It's a religion. And
it's like a cult.
We've got a religion.
It's more of a cult than a religion, I think. I mean,
then that's scary. You can't have a profession that's become a cult.
What does a cult? The definition of a cult. One of the definitions of a cult is that they only allow you to access information inside of the cult and not the other side. They don't allow you to access the other side's information. This is exactly what the orthodontic community is doing.
Yeah. Now that you say that, the word seems to fit quite well. I've never thought about this cult. And it's amazing how groups of highly educated, I mean, these guys are highly educated, although, again, I could drill down on this highly education, because, you know, we live in a world now that where we look up to, we praise photocopiers and calculators, people who've got a photographic memory, who can recall all of these things, who could literally digest stacks of books and take really complex exams on them in very short spaces of time. We think these guys are geniuses. I remember at school when the teacher asked for a question to a boy, and I was able to answer and even name the page number that it came from. And someone said, "Oh, you little Einstein." And yet that is the absolute opposite of what Einstein could do. And that's the problem. You know, you look at people like Einstein, Newton, you know, lots of the greats in science. These guys couldn't do that at all. These guys were off the wall. You know, they were clearly on the spectrum. And I think that we're forgetting that it's, you know, if you can digest a stack of books like this in a short space of time and produce all these answers, you're not questioning the information you're taking on board. Because you can't reflect. You don't have time to reflect. And in a way, we're promoting, you know, all these people that are the antithesis of what, you know, thinkers are. And thinkers, you know, thinking's messy. You know, in many ways, I view myself as a creative. You know, I have all the hallmarks and the traits of a creative, and that's, you know, disorganization, that's, you know, dreaming, losing track of time, you know, all of these, you know, that makes me absolute the last person that's ever going to get to the top of academia. And there is the problem. As I said, you know, you can spot the people in academia that tend to be putting the brakes on. They've usually got the word professor in front of their name.
Sorry, putting the brakes on, you cut out there.
So I said you can normally spot the people that are putting the brakes on scientific advancement, and you can spot them because usually they have the word professor in front of them, and they're the people who are generally preventing this level of academic advancement, because by definition, people come up with great ideas when they're young, when they're rebellious. They don't come up with great ideas when they get older.
Well, there's that
Usually,
saying
they're
that,
threatened by the idea of the young people.
well, there's that saying that science advances one funeral at a time. And that is to say, there are these pillars of the scientific community, these old people, these professors with tenure, and they've been touting this theory for such a long time that their identity is tied to it. And now they can't let go. They don't want to let go of 20 years of 40 years of work that they've put in. And so they say, no, this Mike Mew guy, he's an idiot. Don't listen to him.
Yes.
And until they
Well,
die,
on
a
top
new
of
generation comes in.
Yeah. I mean, but it's in my specific position, it's far worse than that, because of course, who makes money, a dietitian or a liposurgeon? One drives a bicycle and the other a Ferrari. And who's making the real health benefit? Because clearly the dietitian, he that sense of improving someone's health. The liposurgeon's just going to vacuum up some fat, and got a lot of damage in the meantime. But the liposurgeon brings the bucks into the hospital. He's got the reserved parking space. He's on all the committees. The guy, the patient probably just sees the edict from the meetings that he wasn't invited to. And that's the inherent problem with so much of medicine now. Preventing
and to clarify, your solution, the orthotropic solution, is slow. It takes a long time. It takes postural adjustment.
It takes huge numbers of man hours. As I say to patients frequently, I say, watching growth is like watching paint dry. It's boring, it's dull. It takes an enormous amount of appointments. And of course, I've got to change people. People don't want to change. People are set in their ways. I don't, in many ways, I don't promote what I do. Please don't have orthotropics. What you should be looking at is prevention. Go to the website, please quote this, and please go and sign the petition we've got on the website, Prevent Crooked Teeth, because it's got to be prevention. An exercise learnt when you're really young, under the age of 7, but can become a habit of a lifetime.
That's a good
question.
question.
Much of what I'm saying,
I want to know, what can parents do to make sure their children have healthy facial development?
Okay, let's go 4 things. My top 4 things you can do. Tell your kids to stand up straight and shut the mouth. It's not rocket science. Make them eat with their lips together. Then chew gum, and literally chew gum from when they come home from school till they go to bed every day. And go and get one of these tough gums, Facial Fitness or Stronger, the 2 gums I've been using with my kids recently, and then lip tape them at night. Because the problem with sleep apnea is if your face doesn't develop well, you don't have space for, let's say, your wisdom teeth. You don't have space for another set of teeth get taken out, premolar. Well, you're down 8 teeth. Well, that's going to represent a significant reduction in space. Okay, the cross-sectional area has reduced. Your face has got longer, because you're hanging the mouth open. You've only got so much face. It gets longer, it gets narrower, it gets shallower. The cross-sectional area reduces down, and you don't have space on that for those teeth. Well, you also don't have as much space for your tongue and your airway. And that's a far bigger problem than, toothy pegs. Toothy pegs are nice, but I want faces growing well for other reasons than that. And of course, that brings in this thing of sleep apnea, because you don't have space. Your tongue's, where's it going to go? Well, at night, it can drop in your airway when you're not trying to hold it somewhere else. And if you get sleep apnea, kids shouldn't snore. If your child is snoring at night, there's a massive, massive sort of warning. This is a canary in the coal mine. If, check your children are not snoring, because if they are, sleep apnea reduces intelligence. This study where they treated one group of children who were snoring and had some sleep apnea with some treatments, and they raised their IQ by 10 percentage points.
Wow.
Now, that's unheard of. 10 percentage points. David Gonzalez, 10 percentage points of improvement in IQ.
Wow.
Oh, that's beyond that was just like staggering, you know. But look at it the other way around, that if that's affecting your child, they're going to have different life outcome.
Mm.
You know,
Wow.
and then we get back to that thing I was saying earlier on about orthodontics. The orthodontists said you can't positively, and they've tried, and they can't improve growth. So they think it's impossible. That's one of the reasons they're taking me to court now, because I'm saying I can affect growth, and they're saying you can't, and I'm lying to patients, and I'm providing unnecessary treatment because I'm saying I can change their facial growth pattern.
And by the way, there's a ton of videos on mewing on the internet. You watch the before and after photos, and these people look like they've undergone plastic surgery. I mean, they go from, I found it so funny because the New York Times wrote an article on your dad, and it was a terrible article. It said he was the king of incels. And I was just thinking, you know, they're not really incels, because once they do mewing, they go from unfuckable to fuckable. Like, they're no longer incels at that point.
Yeah, this is the point. I mean, you know, but again, you know, I'm confronting all medical knowledge on the fact. You know, when you sat down, you know, when you sit down and look at the implications of what I'm saying, this is a health revolution of epic proportions. People just need to open their eyes and, you know, engage in a little bit of science. You know, I did a 5-year letter writing campaign in the UK, simply asking for debate on why are teeth crooked. Simple thing. If you go to the orthotropic.com website and look at, follow the link from there, you'll see, you know, I've got all letters there. It's this epic letter writing campaign, you know, and no one was interested. You know, literally, no one seems to be interested in the fact that the orthodontic profession have no idea why teeth, openly admitted, they've got no idea why teeth, why teeth are crooked. They do know how there's a few syndromatic people, and of course we've got thumb suckers, but thumb sucking is environmental anyway. But for the average person that goes in, the vast majority of the average person that walks in to have their teeth straightened, they have no idea why the teeth are crooked. And so, you know, old adage, you know, medicine's about treating the cause of the problem. And if you don't understand the cause of the problem, you really don't understand the problem itself.
I don't know where you got this idea that medicine is about treating the cause of the problem, because the medicine that I'm looking around and seeing does not do that. It mostly treats symptoms.
Yes, that is an indictment of the modern world. You know, should I say, I'll rephrase that, should I say, medicine is supposed to be about treating the cause of the problem. Go back to, you know, Hippocrates and, you know, the early philosophers of medical science. This is the idea. And we seem to have taken a left turn at times. When you've got money involved and you've got status involved. In fact, sometimes, you know, I remember reading a book, Modern Medical Monopolies, where they're saying that actually when money isn't involved and it's more status involved, it can be worse. You know, things like the British health system, where money is less involved, status is everything. And people don't want to admit they're wrong, don't want to go back, because the flip side of what I'm saying is that modern orthodontics, if it's possible to change facial growth, mess with the system, and you don't know what you're going to do, and you may make it worse. And I'm saying that at times it would seem that modern orthodontics may lengthen the face, cause a downswing in facial form. I often refer to straightening teeth as rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic. It's, you know, it's great. You know, everyone wants to see the band, and that's important. But, you know, there's bigger problems going on, and no one's spotting that the deck's starting to rise up at one side. And the big issue here is not the fact that we've got no space to fit the teeth in, we've got no space to fit the tongue in. And if we don't understand what causes crooked teeth, we don't understand that the process, the pathology of malocclusion. And if it is possible to change growth, because there's this, you know, it's environment's having an effect, start messing with the problem in your attempt to fix it, and you could upset the underlying situation. And this is the really big.
I want to narrow in on that, because what appealed to me so much about you is that you have this evolutionary background in what you're saying. And so you're saying, and I like it because you're not selling anything, it seems. I mean, a person can mew completely for free, no extra money spent. Maybe you buy some gum sometimes, but you could really just chew steak or eat some jerky. But it's appealing to this evolutionary phenomena where our ancestors ate hard food and they had good posture and they had good tongue posture. And so the Orthodontic Society is not appealing to evolution. It's further away from evolution. And in my mind, generally, as a rule of thumb, the further we get from evolutionary principles, the further we get from our hunter-gatherer ancestor lifestyle, the more unhealthy our bodies get. Now, obviously, that isn't always true. I'm sure you can come up with an example of why it isn't true. But as soon as I heard about you, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense, because I think evolutionarily.
Yeah, well, I'm struggling to find examples where it isn't true. But, you know, so far from the mewing, you know, well, we checked the other day and it's on tick to get some sort of idea of how mewing's doing. I've Googled the hashtag. So I've searched the use of the hashtag on TikTok. And to date, the mewing hashtag on TikTok's been seen 1.6 billion times. Now, the benefit that I've made from that is I've had some free chewing gum. So basically what I've done is some people wanting to promote their chewing gum have asked me to review their chewing gum. I've let them use my name, but I've refused to take any money.
Okay.
Not a dime. Now, the profits from the YouTube channel and the Patreon, that all gets reinvested back into this direct promotion. I don't take a penny. I've made certain that so far I've not made a penny. I've not made a dime from any of this. Maybe stupidly, because I'm broke. I'm really broke.
Yeah, this seems like a real issue for you, because you are going through an extensive legal battle. Because
I'm going through a massive legal battle. You know, the direct cost of this legal battle is going to be about it's £250,000 for the direct legal costs. Then it's only because I've got mates who are willing to write reports, but also mates, people I know who respect me, are writing reports and doing things for free. Otherwise, that would rack on another £50,000 to £100,000.
Do you have a plan to support yourself with this ongoing legal battle?
Well, sounds like when this is finished, because I didn't want to do this before, I plan to release a mewing app, which hopefully will, I think it's a good app, I really do, but there's someone else with a mewing app, it's not mine, mine's not out there. But, you know, to say this is killing me, it's destroying my family, it is no understatement. You know, my Crohn's is raging, I'm losing weight, I'm ill, I'm really unwell. Mentally, this is just, it's oppressive. Really, it's oppressive. It's massive. You know, me and my partner, we were 11 years together, having had 2 arguments. And in the last 6, well, we've got up to the point where we're having like 2 to 3 a week now. It's just,
what can you do to help you out? I mean, obviously give to your Patreon.
Well, we do have, please, you know, we've got a donate page. So, you know, you go to the Prevent Crooked Teeth, or you go to Gasping for Reform, please, I'll give you the websites. But, you know, my father is 94. He had these theories. He was influenced by my grandfather, who read Weston Price's book. And he was influenced by people, the early orthodontists like Harold Chapman, who believed that this was the environment, because they could see it was the environment, because kids didn't have crooked teeth, and it was limited to the richer people were getting crooked teeth, you know, the people living the more developed lifestyles. And it was obvious back then where the problem was coming from.
Well, there's that stereotype of people from England having crooked teeth, and this was a big stereotype back in the day.
Yeah. So where did the Industrial Revolution happen? Britain. So we were further down the line. You know, it's you know, when you start to think of it from this angle, it all makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, and it seems like the orthodontic industry doesn't want to. They don't want you publishing.
Stop making lots of money and admit they were wrong, and they have potentially worsened people's sleep apnea, shortening their lives, reducing their intelligence, and making them look less attractive. Do you think they want to admit that?
No,
I'm not saying
that. To admit that you have blood on your hands, especially when you've been trying to do the right thing.
Yes, and of course, but what amazes me is how few dentists really want. You know, I provide dentists with all the evidence, and during the conversation I had with them, they're going, yeah, well, of course, it makes absolute sense. But then, you know, you never hear anything back. You know, I would imagine one or two of them would send me a referral. And then this is the hard thing, because everyone turns around and goes, you've got no evidence. And I go, well, no, that's not what you mean, because I've got a massive amounts of evidence for the theoretical concept. You know, the theoretical concept is, you know, it's delivered, it's wrapped up and delivered. It's soundly evidence-based. No, what they mean is that I and Dad and me have not yet been able to come up with a treatment method that gains the same outcomes as theirs on their grounds. So they want us to come up with a treatment method so we can treat kids and make all their teeth beautifully straight. And of course, great faces to boot. Now, I know that if you give me a child 7 or 8 years old, unlimited resources and pretty good motivation, and they stay the course for a decade, I could make every single one of them have great looking facial form, straight teeth, and improve their health massively. But it's going to cost me, I would reckon it's going to cost me somewhere in the region of 30 to 40,000 pounds of, well, I should be charging 30 to 40,000 pounds, if not 50,000 pounds for that treatment, because of the time, the effort, the expertise, and all the appliances I would need to do over that decade. But the problem is people just don't like changing. You know, you talk to a physiotherapist, you talk to a, you know, osteopaths, and you talk to teachers. You know, kids don't change easily. Well, people don't change easily. Kids do a lot more. That's why I say you've really got to get in with your kids when they're young, because if you can create a habit that lasts a lifetime, you've won.
Now, I've heard people talk about, you mentioned gum, chewing gum. I told someone about mewing, and they said, no, that won't work, because when I was young, I chewed a lot of gum and then I started grinding my teeth. Is there any connection between chewing a lot and grinding teeth?
Well, in a way, yes, because of course, if you don't have your tongue on the roof of the mouth, then your muscles aren't in balance, aren't they? Because, you know, I've got my biceps and triceps. Now my biceps pull in, my triceps push out. All of the muscles that cross a joint have the same sets, you know, antagonistic pairs. Okay. Now you've got these massive jaw closing muscles here. What's your antagonistic pair? It's got to be your tongue on the roof of the mouth. Now, if your tongue's hanging down like this,
and the bottom,
it's not acting as an antagonist. You know, you see those old steam engines had this governor on it, and the governor had these two sets of balls. And as the governor went faster and faster, the balls would move out. It would regulate the system. And these antagonistic pairs regulate each other. Now, imagine I've got a steam engine. I take the governor and I just chuck it in the bin. Good scrap metal. Then I start chucking the coal in. You know, this is, you're chewing more. You're just chucking more coal in. What's going to happen? The steam engine is going to go faster and faster and faster till it flies into pieces. Well, you're grinding your teeth. The problem is not that the muscles are strong. Our muscles are puny compared to our ancestors. The problem is you don't have your regulatory system in there. The tongue's not on the roof of the mouth. It's not going to act as the antagonist to the jaw clenching muscles. That's your problem.
Now I want to talk about, I want to talk about your dad, because your dad essentially brought mewing to the Western world. I mean, he was
well, no, he was not pushing exercises, Dad.
Okay.
He didn't push exercise. He had the basic concepts. He was much more treatment focused. And of course, this is his downfall, was to bang on about his treatment, saying how wonderful it was. And that was the answer. Because as soon as you do that, people saying, well, you're clearly influenced. You're in here with you're promoting yourself and your treatment. And that's why I've been careful not to take a dime or a penny of any money, because I'm not influenced. I'm not completely unbiased. I've seen the error of what he did.
Yep.
He didn't truck exercises that much, because all of these kids, they weren't doing them. And of course, I struggle to get the kids doing the exercises. I've tried, but I in my efforts to try to do them, I got bored of explaining the exercises. So I've made some videos to put the exercises online, and then those videos went viral.
Yeah.
This is, I was interested in, this is how Jordan Peterson became famous, because he decided to put the videos of him lecturing to his students online. They went viral. And in a very similar way, this is what happened to me. I did give this lecture to the was called the 21 Convention. If I'd done any research at all, which of course didn't, I wouldn't have done this interview, because it was, this is where I gained the epitaph from the New York Times of, preaching to incels. This was the loaded group. Medicine goes beyond that. There has no boundaries. There should be no boundary. I will teach to incels. I'll teach to,
of course,
medicine goes beyond. You don't decide that, you treat both sides of the war. Both sides get medical treatment. You don't make a cognitive decision. Oh, well, we're not treating the opposition. All those guys in red, we're not treating them because they were the losers. Let them die.
In the limited time I've spent on the internet as a public figure, I've realized this very important thing, and it's that any publicity is good publicity. It's absolutely true, because the New York Times says you're the king of incels or whatever they say, but it turns out that 1 million people see you, and then even if 10% of them say, well, maybe I'm not going to blindly believe the New York Times, maybe I'm going to look at this guy myself, they look at you and then they realize that, oh, I should restructure my jaw, I should start mewing. And then you have suddenly, maybe 90% of people hate you, but who cares? 10% of those people are your new biggest fans. And so New York Times, they're doing you a favor.
Yes, I'm amazed that more people aren't interested in this. The countless times my father tried to get into the press, he goes along to the press, and clearly, as I said, he was promoting his concept. The press phone up the orthodontists say, no, he's a nutter, end of story. And that's it. And of course, you've got these two things. You've got because if I'm right, a huge chunk of otolaryngology, whatever in America, we call it ENT, ear, nose and throat. I don't know what you call it in Australia.
ENT,
wonderful. It's much easier word. We call it ENT. So a huge chunk. Well, what's ENT doing? It's fixing these symptoms, glue ear, deviated nasal septums, sinusitis, all, enlarged tonsils and adenoids. All of these problems are your face didn't grow well.
Oh,
face didn't grow well. Then
terrible sinusitis when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, look at you just see the width of the nasal capacity in pre-industrial skulls. It's like 5 times wider. There's completely different architecture. We're surprised we're getting all these problems. Even what the real problem here is when you look at skulls in anatomical textbooks, and then you look back at the pre-industrial skulls, you realize even our goalposts are wrong. How can you, I remember when, we live in the southeast of England, the bit sort of between Dover and London, almost, and the bit a bit more under, so diagonal southeast sort of line from London, and that's the area we live in. I've been brought up in. And my father, that was the area where the Germans would have invaded through had they invaded England. And one of the things they did was, in the preparations of the war, they removed all of the road signs. They took the lot out. And my father said it's amazing how difficult it is to orientate yourself if you get lost and you have no road signs, not one. And it's crazy, because, and so that's what they did. They did, you know, the Germans might have maps, the paratroopers will land. What they're going to need is a road sign or some sort of direction, and they've got none of it. They don't know where they are, because, you know, roads look a bit similar, and, you know, all these various crossroads and junctions. You know, there's so many you could get confused with. And if you have the road map of what you think is correct is incorrect, you're stuck. You're up that creek without a paddle. We're looking at our foundation stones are wrong. How are you going to build a decent square house when one foundation stone is higher than the other's foundation stone?
Now, look, you mentioned Jordan Peterson before, and I told you a little bit before this that I wanted to have you look at a few different celebrity faces and then just analyze them for me. And you went above and beyond, as seems to be your nature. And you've prepared.
I'm on the spectrum. You know, what do we expect?
It's a superpower. It's an absolute superpower. I sent you an article from Graham Stoney, and he has an excellent blog on Jordan Peterson. And essentially, this guy Graham Stoney, who is he blogs about surviving chronic fatigue syndrome, and just all the ways that he's naturally cured himself from CFS. And he messaged Jordan Peterson saying, hey, I think your face is malaligned and I think you have sleep apnea because your face is ill-structured. And Jordan Peterson actually wrote back, I believe, the next day and said, yes, you're absolutely right. How did you know that? And so Graham Stoney is a big fan of yours, I believe, and a big fan of mewing in general. And I thought maybe you could analyze, we're going to do a few celebrities, but Jordan Peterson's face for us.
So, all right. So I prepared a couple of slides because this fascinated me. OSA is obstructive sleep apnea. And that's, so I was fascinated with this is the interview between Jordan Peterson and Brett Weinstein. I've been on Brett Weinstein's podcast myself. And I was staggered with what Jordan Peterson was saying with this, his depression, that, you know, he says he's got this untreatable depression. He says that, you know, when he gets up in the morning, he can't stand, you know, he has to go to the sauna for an hour and a half. And then, then he can only stand long enough to get to the shower where he tries to wake himself up. And then he eats and walks 10 miles. And, you know, he's this thing that's plaguing him. It absolutely staggers me that, you know, he could be in such a situation. And this is screaming sleep apnea, you know. Graham Stoney, I've talked to Graham Stoney myself online, and, you know, the guy seemed to be very observant, and, you know, he's a really clever bloke, and he put that website together. But, you know, it's a good resource, and I think he's come to some good conclusions, and I would agree with him that what Jordan Peterson is describing sounds just like sleep apnea. And so I thought, you know, I could make some level of, here's the web page, here's a screenshot from the web page. So I thought we did an analyzation of Jordan Peterson. Now, there's lots of different causes we recognize for sleep apnea, and I'm not interested in any of them except the structural cause. So I'll just talk about the structural issues here with Jordan Peterson. But Jordan Peterson has got, you know, a slightly longer face. You know, what you'd call it sort of in the past, it was sort of referred to as a sort of noble face, a distinguished face. And this was when everyone else in the fields who were farming, subsistence farmers, had pretty good facial development. Now, here is a representation I've got here of what I refer to as craniofacial dystrophy. This is, you know, this is the pathological process underlying you know, malocclusion. It's, of course, it's, as I said, faces with good architecture work well. And of course, here I have someone with what we refer to as ancestral architecture, you know, a very forward-growing prognatic face.
Is this a
And then
child's
what
face or is this an adult's face?
it is an adult's face, but you know, remember that children tend to have traits that look good. They always do, because you know they're supposed to look cute, they're supposed to look adorable so that you love them. Also, they tend to start at least growing well, and then things go wrong. You know, if you walk into a classroom of 6-year-olds, most of them look good. Yeah, look cute. Walk into a classroom of 18-year-olds, and how many of them really look cute?
Yeah.
You know, I know every mother looks at their child and says, yeah, my child's cute, but
our bodies are natural. We naturally understand what health looks like. We are
yeah, we're hardwired. We're hardwired to be, in my view, attracted to healthy faces. That's what makes you attractive. This is the you know, your face is the CV of your health. It's this Felicia beacon to, hello, I've managed to grow a great face. That means I not only am I healthy and have great architecture and will survive well in a world, but also I've managed to do it. And that was an achievement. And that's what you're signaling with good facial form. It's not genetic. We know it's not genetic. Wake up, smell the coffee. It's not a hand you're dealt. This is something you achieve yourself. Okay, so now I show you what goes wrong. So if you have weak muscles, you know, you haven't been having to rip tough meat out, you know, it's not the tough diet as far as eating rough meat and things. It's when you've got to dry your meat because you've got no refrigeration. You dry meat and you haven't had a kill in 2 months. You're now eating these strips of leather. And that's what our ancestors were eating a lot of. But and it was the bulk of food, because they had to eat a vast amount to keep themselves going. You know, it was, if you didn't get enough to eat, you died. So, you know, no fussy eaters back then. All right, so if your jaw muscles are weak and you've got nasal obstruction, so you're hanging your mouth open, the nasal obstruction might have passed, it's now become a habit. So you've got the open mouth posture and weak muscles. Your face is lengthening. And as your face lengthens, now most people would stop halfway down this path I'm showing. But Jordan hasn't. Jordan's face has fallen. You see how the whole face distorts and it drops there. And that's Jordan Peterson. And as that face has dropped down,
you definitely got a strong,
of course, then go on to get the various different types of malocclusion. But that depends on your response to this insult. Now, one of the problems is that what we do is, as our face drops down, we then tip it upright. We tip it upright, so you've got the vertical line, more or less. This point here is more or less above this point here. Okay. Now, I think the way you hold your head depends more on psychological reasons. You know, you think you're better than everyone, it's up like this. If you think worse than everyone, or you're depressed, it's down like this. And so here's an illustration. You know, this person appears to have a decent chin, but look. So, and here's that same vertical line on her. There's her skull, but notice her hair, her forehead slopes. She's got this curve in the spine. So if I can bring my mouse in there, the spine is going down, but it's got a curve around here because she's got this forward head posture. And she seems to have a larger nose. And it's a larger nose because it's got no support on those cheekbones. And of course, if I uprighted her face, so the face was correctly uprighted, that's how she would be. She's hiding this by tipping her head up. And of course, in the same way, I've done the same line on Jordan Peterson, but noticing he's got this sloping forehead. He's got this large looking nose. It's not that large. It's just because he's got, you know, his cheekbones are flat. From under the eye, he's got no cheekbones. He's got cheekbones, the nose would look smaller. And of course, you know, his head's curved. His neck's curved. So I upright Jordan Peterson. That gives you some idea of how far and back. And of course, that's then I'm comparing that back to the image I showed you earlier on. So this is the great distortion that's gone on in his facial complex. Now, clearly, there's a lot of ethnic variation in these, although often not as much as you would imagine. One of the very interesting things, if you go back and look at ancestral skulls, is how little ethnic variation there is. You know, I'm a firm believer this is not genetic. In fact, the evolution has led us to gain surface differences, because it really is just the surface. Remember, if you're a hunter-gatherer society, you were defending your land. If you didn't recognize someone and they were hunting in your land, you killed them. So the recognition was a really important thing. So the ethnic differences are literally skin deep, and they were designed to be skin deep. So, and then of course, because you've got this lack of space here in the mouth, you know, you've got this structural problem. You know, you've got to have a forward head posture to open the airway up. You know, if Jordan Peterson tried to stand back like this, as I described in the illustration on the bottom left here, he's got no airway. His tongue is going to be.
Can you do that again? Can you do that again? Can you?
If I do that, if I'm doing that, so if you know, this is a forward head posture.
Yeah.
Most people have. In fact, 85% of the people I see have got a significant forward head posture. Now, if you try and correct that so that your ear is over your traps, the back of the traps, trapezius. So if I pull that back,
now
most people can't breathe like that, can they?
That actually, it sounded a bit more like his voice. It sounded a bit more like you were impersonating Peterson a little bit in his
yes.
that he has.
So the reason, you know, he's got this 12. I love his 12 rules of life. I like listening to Jordan Peterson. I mean, you know, he seems. I like it because it stimulates me intellectually. He's one of the few people where I have to literally stop what he's saying, often rewind 20 seconds, listen to what he's saying. And, you know, that's my great love in life is thinking. You know, why else are we on this planet? You know, I think, therefore I am. You know, I am, therefore I think. That's my enjoyment in life. And he makes me think, so I've got great respect for him. I know he's controversial. Literally, this isn't my area. Sorry, my area is focused elsewhere.
I love him too. He's great. Yeah.
No. So now, but of course, he has to have a forward head posture. So he cannot be doing his number one rule of life. I watched him give a lecture in Australia, and I'm watching his head posture all the way along. And he's got a forward head posture. He's not standing up straight with his shoulders back. The very essence of what he's teaching, because he can't. It's uncomfortable to him. It's not uncomfortable. He's embarrassing his airway. Strange medical word, this, embarrassing your airway. You know. But if he were to do that, it would be uncomfortable. And, you know, as much as he's got the angel on one side saying that, you know, I know my first rule of life is stand up straight with my shoulders back, but you've got the devil on the other side that says, breathe. What's going to win? You know, I can think of one thing in my head at the time. If I'm not thinking about how I'm standing up straight, I'm thinking about something else. But that desire to breathe is there all the time. Now, what we notice here is this is causing a lot of strain because the weight of his head is far ahead of the center of his shoulders. And that's going to cause a strain. Now, I've tried to actually look at how wide his dental arches are, how much space he's got width-wise. He definitely, you know, he's got a little bit of crowding on his front teeth. You know, you can see that on the bottom front teeth when I look here on this image here. And of course, you can see his canines are standing out with the other teeth behind there are narrower. So he's definitely got a restriction width-wise. But it's the fact the whole face is set back and down. He lacks tongue space. And what tongue space he's got is down and back, closer to his airway. You know, the bottom of your airway here is your hyoid bone. And the back of the airway, sorry, the bottom of the tongue is your hyoid bone. And the back of your tongue is your airway. And if you lack space for your tongue, because your whole face has dropped down and dropped backward, the tongue's now in your airway. And that's, well, you can cope during the daytime, because during the daytime, you can recruit other muscles that we wouldn't normally, our ancestors wouldn't have used to breathe. But if you're asleep, you can't do that. You know, these voluntary muscles, they switch off at night. And I think that's, I could go on, I've got loads of different, once you start thinking on this route, theory upon theory upon theory then starts piling up. And of course, I came out with the answer, you know, the mewing, you know, coming, you know, exercising your tongue. Well, mewing in many ways is myofunctional therapy. I think that, you know, in my research, I've seen one person, and that was actually a myofunctional therapist herself, that managed to gain improvement in facial form. Whereas mewing well, you just hunt the internet. There's thousands upon thousands of people, and I get letters of people who are older than. I think my rule of thumb is at 25 you're going to struggle to get. After 25 you'll struggle to gain significant improvements in the structure. But under 25, yeah, it's not difficult.
So what can Jordan Peterson do to improve his facial structure?
Well, okay. Still, even if you don't get changes in facial form, I use changes in facial form as a barometer. And that barometer tells me that mewing is far more effective than myofunctional therapy. That's why I mention it. Now, Jordan Peterson, he could do some myofunctional therapy, or you could just go and do mewing. It's free. It's online. Not wait till the mewing app comes out. There'll be more specific information. But even in adults, myofunctional therapy can reduce the apnea hypopnea index by 50%. You know, that's a measure of sleep apnea. I can't say,
because you're saying myofunctional therapy is mewing, and then you're saying that it's not as effective as mewing.
But so mewing is, I think, more powerful than myofunctional therapy, but they're basically very similar things.
I don't know what myofunctional therapy is, but that's okay. So
well, that's the official term for these exercises of the mouth.
And you said that it's hard for someone over 25 to mew and get results, but it is not impossible.
No, I don't quite. I said it's hard for someone over 25 to mew and gain improvements in facial form.
Oh, but they
can mew and gain improvements in sleep apnea. They can mew and gain, loads of improvements in, body posture. I see people jaw joint problems. I get the mails just roll in of people who just say nothing more than just thank you.
Wow.
A lot of people just say, at least I understand the problem that I've got.
And by the way, course, if you are one of those people who is thanking Mike Mew for what he's done for you, donate to his Patreon. All right, he needs this now.
I need it badly, and I mean, or go and sign the petition that prevent crooked teeth.
Yeah,
go to the website gasping for reform. It's it is really, really tough. I mean, what you don't understand is how hard it is to go against the establishment, because not only am I on my own, but all the papers, all the knowledge, all the the system, all the regulations, everything is set up for the opposite side. Everything, every direction I look in, it's, this is the ultimate David and Goliath battle match here coming up. 15th of November, I go to court. They want to take my license. If this goes down, this is going to seriously affect all of you, because my objective is to get the spotlight of modern medical research to focus on this area. I mean, how else are we going to make improvements? It's estimated that 20% of the adult population in the developed world is going to die 10 years early because of sleep apnea and its consequences. Wake up. That's 10 years for a fifth of you. Anyway.
And 10 IQ, that's 10 IQ points. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I don't know if it's 10 IQ points in everyone. That was just that research by David Gonzalez, where they took some young kids, and it was staggering. It could be more, it could be less.
Okay, but, so when you say Jordan Peterson should mew, what you're talking about, I believe, is standing up straight with good posture and your
tongue on the roof of the mouth.
Tongue on the roof of the mouth.
Stand up straight with your mouth shut, basically.
Yep. And there's something in mewing. I've seen some other influencers talking about mewing and how you should push forward with your tongue or push up with your tongue, like change the shape of your mouth.
Yes, actually, and this is where I'm going to, when the mewing app comes out, I'm going to go into it. I'll drill down to more detail on this. But you actually should have your tongue vacuumed onto the roof of the mouth, because as soon as you do that, all of a sudden you'll find it will push itself up and forwards in a nice sort of progressive, gentle way, and just stay there. And then all you've got to do is maintain the vacuum with your lips, and you're done.
And when you say the roof of your mouth, do you mean like, is the tongue supposed to be just before the front of your teeth in the front?
Yeah, the tongue shouldn't really be pressing on the teeth. Well, okay, I'll explain that in better detail. The feeling surface of the tongue should just be on the roof of your mouth. So you shouldn't be feeling the teeth. But a lot of people are going to have very narrow arches, and we'll go into that in time, what they can do as well. Now, mewing is, people are going to struggle, exactly that reason. Jordan Peterson is going to struggle to get his tongue in the roof of the mouth. And of course, he could consider to have surgery. So this was a surgery by Stanley Liu in Stanford. And he's literally just bought this person. So he's done what people who are mewing are trying to, and some of them are achieving, but he's done this surgically. And when I talked to Paul Koshiernik, the author of 6 Ways to Design a Face, I mean, he's got an unpronounceable surname. You know, he does surgery on people, and he's telling me afterwards, people come up to him and go, or they make comments, you know, they say, some of them said, you know, I can run now. They said, I always thought that I just wasn't athletic. I thought, you know, I always thought that I was, you know, one of those people who got dealt that poor hand of cards and I couldn't run. And, you know, all my life I tried running and I couldn't. Now that you've brought my top jaw forwards, of course, you've brought the palate out of my, the palate forward, the soft palate forward, you've brought my tongue forward out the airway, and I can run. It's amazing. And I love running. And of course, this is the profound effect you're getting when you gain structural change on people.
Now, this is going to be a big issue with Jordan Peterson, because if Jordan Peterson gets jaw surgery, he is going to have to stop talking for more than 10 minutes, which is going to be a problem for him, I think. That man loves...
Well, if he's spending an hour or so in the sauna every morning, and this routine that seems to take half his morning, he's going to get more time back. And, you know, I think that it's going to, I have real respect for the guy because he's a great intellect. He's saying some really interesting things.
He changed the course of my life. I have eternal gratitude for Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. And of course, he's just, you know, I don't really understand all of the angst against him. But sorry, what I fundamentally disagree with is trying to deplatform people. Because that's unscientific. And anyone who brings information and knowledge to the fore and is willing to debate that, I have respect for, infinite respect for. And of course, the guy intellectually challenges me, and I love that. As my favorite thing on the planet is to sit there and be intellectually challenged and stimulated, you know.
And
now, what I needed to do,
you can save his life. Perhaps
I would love to. You know, Jordan Peterson, if you're watching this, or anyone who has engagement with Jordan Peterson, please put me in contact, because you could probably help me out, and I could probably help you out. You know, what I need here is publicity for what I believe is probably one of the greatest scandals that's befallen medicine. Anyway, what I also want to do shows the last slide I've got here. There's one more slide I'll show off this, but this is my idea of good facial development. Now, you know, what I dislike about this is these people are all black, because it looks racist, and it's not. It's just that these people were from the marginalized lands and areas that where they're still actually living a much more natural and good lifestyle. You know, I made a point, I included Nelson Mandela down here on the bottom left, because, you know, his face grew well. And, you know, is what really amazes me with Nelson Mandela, how, you know, he still had that nice youthful look late into his life. But, you know, these are people who have faces, you know, they could be any color. They just happen to be in a good environment. This is not genetic. Genetics is skin deep. These are people who have grown well because they were in a more natural lifestyle. And if I look at I don't know, but anyone who's watching this, I went and looked at your ancestors. Your ancestors will look more like these guys than you do. Because they grew well. They had these great big dental arches. They always had all their teeth. You know, my fingers fit on my hands. You know, to suggest the wisdom teeth, the loss of wisdom teeth, is some evolutionary change. It's just bizarre. You
fucking rort.
No idea of evolution.
Don't you think that if our ancestors were getting wisdom teeth and then they were getting infected all the time, don't you think that would have died out evolutionarily? Don't you think that if everyone was getting an infection at the age of 20 and dying, don't you think that might have changed the course of evolution a little bit?
People create I think this was called projection, isn't it? Where you try and project your values and your your beliefs onto anything you can to try and make it fit. I'm really not good with all the PC and the woke wordings and things. Sorry, I've got my area that I'm an expert in. That's the area I'm an expert. I'm trying to make the world a better place, and that's what I limit myself to. I'm not I'm not, my brain's not big enough for all these other things. One area. Now, what I'll leave this on then is this pathological process. So craniofacial dystrophy, go and look that up, try and understand, because if there is a significant environmental contribution to the way faces grow and all of these other problems, and these problems are related, it's got to have a name. And craniofacial, well, this is craniofacial structure dystrophy, simply means incorrect growth. And this name's been now adopted by wide swathes of the population around the world. As I said, you've got 1.6 billion people, or 1.6 billion hashtags of mewing have been viewed on TikTok. That's a drop in the ocean for all the other social media platforms and all the conversations and emails and, in communications going on around the world on this subject. The whole thing is fascinating. The whole thing is, as I said, the only people who are really interested in this are people with faces. But if you have a face, this is going to fascinate you. This is going to really fascinate you, because, it's personal. Yeah.
You can't have much of a better sales pitch than "I will make you more attractive."
Well, yeah. Well, what I think I'm doing with kids when I treat them, as I'm saying, I reckon I should be charging about £50,000 a case I take on, because that's, if I wanted to come anywhere close to a normal earning level of a normal orthodontist, that's what I'd be charging at. I'm literally on the point of burnout now from having worked. I've worked for a decade and a half. I've made virtually nothing. I've paid myself a student plus wage. I've worked 10 hours a day, frequently 6 days a week. I've taken crap. I've taken crap and crap and crap and crap. And then the most disheartening thing is to have worked on someone for 7 years. Then they lose their appliance. They go a couple of months without seeing me, and they revert to their own tricks, and you lose 20% of what we gained. Because they don't understand the importance. The parents are still going, "Oh, but the teeth aren't straight." And I'm going, well, I'm not trying to straighten the teeth. I'm trying to get good facial growth, because that's far more important than pretty alignment of teeth.
Okay, so I am going to show you some other influencers, some
great
influencers, and I want you to tell me about their facial structure.
Okay, so here we go. So here's the round one of Diagnose a Face.
So the first one is Joe Rogan when he's young, and then when he's older, and he's had quite a bit of facial change. Can you see him?
Wow.
Yeah, that's young
That
Joe
is
Rogan.
Interesting.
It's
can we have these photos side by side, or are you going to have one after another?
I can't do that. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
And then here's
what I'm saying there is his face has squared up enormously.
So let's
he's a nice looking boy, but you see how much it's getting broader. It's like he's he's getting wider and wider and wider, this face here.
So he's known to have taken testosterone. He does TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. Could the testosterone, the steroids, have made his face wider?
Well, yeah, because they're going to build up the muscle tone, aren't they? What we know from the research. I mean, Kiliardis does this research where he's just saying that, the more you chew, the wider the face gets. And they do the research where they take guinea pigs and they give one group of guinea pigs this tough chow. These are chow pellets. So they've got to chew through, and they're really tough chow pellets. And they give the other group of guinea pigs, they give them exactly the same pellets, but they've been soaked overnight in water. So they're soft. And you get one grows with the big, normal, craniofacial structure for a guinea pig, and the other guinea pig has narrower facial structures because they're eating softer food. I mean, when you stop to look at the research behind this, it is everywhere, in every direction. And yeah, no, Jordan, Joe Rogan's face has got wider. You can see it. You know, it's this area of the face that's filled in.
So why is
Mind you,
so he's gotten a wider jaw, obviously from chewing more from the.
I'd imagine that it's not just from chewing. I imagine it's just this latent level of strength within his jaws. And it's just this latent lens. We refer to it as muscle tone, but I think we probably need to add a few words into the lexicon here, because you know, people claim you can't change muscle tone, and I refer to it now as the muscle effect. But I think I think his tongue is not being on his roof of his mouth as much. When I look, he seemed to have developed more here and developed less here. You know, I talk about the inner and outer U, and he's definitely developed the outer U in his face, and the inner U hasn't been developed. So the inner U is the tongue on the roof of the mouth. This develops this area here, and the outer U is this area of the jaw here.
Okay, and would you say Joe Rogan might have sleep issues at all? What could you diagnose him with anything?
I think he's far less likely than someone like Jordan Peterson. But you don't know. You notice he's got this forward head posture. He's a little bit like this, so he's holding his tongue forward, and his forehead is sloping a little bit. So you know the whole of the craniofacial structure has swung back to some degree. One of the difficult things with sleep apnea is there's such a big range of things. You know, it's notoriously difficult to diagnose sleep apnea because, well, for example, we use a 20-channel diagnostic system. So there's 20 different things they're measuring at night, and they still struggle to diagnose sleep apnea, because you've got some kids who breathe like this at night, and they have poor craniofacial structure, but they compensate, and then they don't have actual symptoms.
Okay, can we go on to the next person?
Yep, please do. Now, it's really hard to diagnose. I can see where the teeth are in a face that's interesting to see the teeth. But when someone's smiling, it's really hard to start diagnosing. I like a profile if possible, but you can see here. Yeah, not hard to diagnose. Yeah, hard to. Now here we go. Okay, so now his face is lengthened. So if I presume you can see my mouse.
No, I cannot.
Okay, so the area between his eyes down to the level of his lips, it is kind of this area here, from here to here. It's flattened. You can see the whole area is flattened. He's got a reasonably decent chin point here, reasonably decent. But this whole area here is set back a little bit, meaning the nose is slightly more prominent. That means his tongue's not on the roof of the mouth enough. I mean, he'll be sitting there like this.
Yeah.
Too much of the time. When he's swallowing, he's using that bottom lip. You can see the bottom lip is bigger than the top lip. You can see the band of muscles running down here in his bottom lip. So he's doing this too much of the time. This is the most common thing, you know. 70% of the people are doing. You're doing that, and he's swallowing like this. Yeah, he's using that, and also he's using that bottom lip to close. Yeah, or the mentalis muscle here to keep his lips closed. But he actually has the active muscular engagement to close his lips. Yeah, and he's very average, really, really average for modern human.
Now, if you want to know what he's talking about, obviously you can check out mewing. You can check that out on, I mean, if you just type it into YouTube, you will find so many guides, just a plethora of guides on how to mew properly. All right.
Well, you won't, because most of them I know aren't mewing properly.
Who are your favorite mewers? Who are your favorite?
I don't have the time. And this is my big problem. My workload is so immensely tough. And the moment, having all these cases against you is just so mentally oppressive. When I get home at night, I want nothing to do with this right now.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so let's try someone else. Do you know Mikhaila?
And I don't have much time. The spare time I have is family time.
Yeah, well, that's good. You got to be it's good that you're prioritizing. Do you know Mikhaila Peterson, Jordan Peterson's daughter?
No, I know of her. I know that she had, I mean, I remember Jordan Peterson talking about her.
So she's absolutely gorgeous. I assume that she has pretty good facial structure and tongue.
She again, significantly better than average. I mean, I would stop here.
Mm-hmm.
So you notice how her chin point is a little bit further forward than the rest. She's got a strong chin. Okay. So first of all, this chin is angled down too far. The whole chin should be swung up a little bit. So imagine if I could compress her face and I'd squeeze it down like this, there, like that. Then her chin would be coming more forward and she'd have more of that like Angelina Jolie horizontal projection of the jaw. And then this area of the face, the cheekbones, would just be pushed up and forwards, giving her more definition on the cheekbone. She's got a nice face.
Yeah.
You know, she definitely has a nice facial form from here. And you can see full cheekbones. She you know, she doesn't have these bags under her eyes. You know, this is well developed there. And, you know, that's a much healthier facial complex. And just proving, you know, this can't be genetic because beauty is not genetic. It couldn't be. Just look at how many really pretty people don't have really pretty children. What you're inheriting is people's diets. You're inheriting people's postural habits. That's what you're inheriting from people. I mean, maybe there's something genetic in it, but research is not good on this. You know, research is really vying onto the genetic, the environmental side.
Okay, so I'm going to show you now. Let's look at Taylor Swift, who is naturally, I mean, she looks like a bit of an alien in that one. I don't know why I chose that one. Oh.
Okay, so Taylor Swift has got this section of her face is lengthened too much.
Too much.
This section of her face hasn't. So this looks much longer than this section here. So her nose is projecting further forwards because she's going to be a little bit flat here. That's because her tongue is down. I've seen her sitting there. You know, you watch Taylor Swift between syllables and she's like this. Her lips are apart. You can just see her tongue between her teeth. Yeah. And then when she's swallowing, when I talked about Mikhaila before, but you see her bottom lip is much bigger than her top lip. And it's rolled over like this. So when you use this muscle here, the chin muscle, mentalis, to close your lips, what you do, you roll the lip over. And that's what Taylor Swift's got. She's got this. So Taylor Swift's flatter here than ideal. Her bottom lip is rolled over like that.
Still gorgeous though. Anyway, Taylor.
Hey, she's got nice facial form.
Mewing is all you need. You can still.
Well, it was interesting. Well, this court case is a mixture of allegations, but the British Orthodontic Society. So at the time, they were basically my trades union, if you will. And they went through my videos and they took a video that I'd done of Taylor Swift analyzing her face. And they reported me for it, suggesting that I was recommending unnecessary treatment. And I mean, most bizarre. So, but I had analyzed her face already. And I see lots of Taylor Swift sitting like this. You know, you get these backstage images of her like this. And then it's almost universal. So Taylor Swift could make gains. You know, Taylor particularly make gains. And I'm a bit concerned about, I analyzed her and I think someone's taken her front teeth orthodontically and moved them up and forwards.
Yes.
And well, you're moving them out their balance zone. Now you can move teeth out their balance zone. You can't move the bone out of the balance zone. The bone will go back to its balance zone. So I would be worried about the roots of her teeth. Because if you're wearing a retainer, you're holding your teeth out the balance zone. And that I worry about that. I don't really have answers. I've got really, really worried about it. I've got great big worries. You know, I don't have all the answers, but I'm asking the right questions. And until we can get the spotlight of modern medical research to focus on this area, we run big risks.
Okay.
We've got big, you know, we're messing with kids' lives.
I'm going to show you. Do you know Derek from Moreplatesmoredates?
Doesn't ring a bell.
He is a proponent of yours, actually. He's talked about mewing in the past quite a bit. So he's let's have a look. Let's see if we can get a good one. So what What can you say about him? Should I go through some more photos?
Well, he's definitely been working out.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, now stop. We're great. I love a profile photo. Okay, so like most men, what we're seeing here, well, not most men, this is a classic thing for men. So I say, this is a classic thing I see with guys. A really strong jaw, really poor maxilla. I'd say the same thing for myself.
What's a
So
maxilla?
the maxilla is the cheekbone area here, the top
Mm-hmm.
jaw. This top jaw here area, it's flat. It makes his nose look larger than it is.
Mm-hmm.
His top lip doesn't look right because top lip doesn't do anything. He's got a really atrophic upper lip. It doesn't do anything. You know, everything's going on with the bottom lip. When he's swallowing, the bottom lip is doing all the action, and the top lip is doing virtually nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And he will frequently sit there with his lips apart, and that top lip in a way is shrunk back and upwards. You know, he really needs to work on that top lip, get that top lip more active, balance up the size of his lips so his top and bottom lip become more the same size. But you know, one of the interesting things I could do is I could make, you know, I would break people down into a couple of patterns. You know, these such intrinsic habits. That's why I put all of this stuff about mewing up online. When people phone me saying, "Oh, can you give me a lesson on mewing?" I go, "No, not interested. It's too boring. It's too dull. I can't look inside your mouth and know exactly what you're doing right or wrong at any one moment." And I put all the exercises online. Just it's not complex. 90% of people follow the same simple mistakes.
What do you think? So Derek apparently has pretty bad sleep apnea. Can you, from looking at this photo, figure out why?
Well, his jaw looks great until he does this, and then he's got no jaw. If he stands up straight, he's got no jaw. Yeah, he's gaining the jaw because he's hunched forwards, leaning his face forwards, isn't he? Yeah, and his jaw, he has got good definition. He's got good, strong musculature, but the whole face is set down and back. One of the measurements I take is from the tip of the nose down to the tip of the front teeth. And if you imagine that now, you can see that length's increased. And that's why he's got sleep apnea, because that's a good measurement. It's in the right direction. It's in, you know, I can't go into all the details, but that's roughly the right way. It's a good analyzation tool. We call it the indicator line. It's an indication.
This guy's called the knees over toes guy. He's a famous fitness influencer. See if we can get a side profile.
Oh, now he's got bigger problems.
Yeah.
He's got much bigger problems. This guy's, yeah, he's going to be struggling. Okay, what have we got? Under his eyes, it's completely flat. You know, he's got no cheekbones there. Makes his nose look far larger than it really is. You know, you can see how his bottom jaw is set back from everything in his face. You can see rather than, you know, if you look at my jaw, you've got this horizontal section here. He's got almost none of that horizontal section. It's down to a little length. So I'm not saying his jaw is smaller, because if you take the entire length of his jaw, right from where the joint is, just in front of his ear, right the way down to the tip of his jaw, the length's about the same as a normal person. But the forward horizontal projection is reduced because the whole face has just melted down. He's a little bit like a waxwork model. Someone's got a bit too close to the fire and the whole thing has melted down. And of course, this has happened in 3 dimensions. So not only has it gone down forward, but it's got narrower as well. So he's got no space for his tongue. He's not got space. I would be shocked to hear that he has all 32 teeth in his mouth. I would imagine he at least has his wisdom teeth missing. He probably has another premolar missing. If he doesn't, then I would imagine he's wearing retainers that are holding his teeth out of their natural balance place. And if you're holding your teeth out the balance point, that's great, but you're unlikely to hold that bone out their balance point. Teeth without bone, they're not much use. So I've got real problems with him. And you can see from the creases in his face there how he's swallowing, sucking back every time he's swallowing, pulling that all further back. You know, he I would worry about. You know, he's got potential problems down the line. If he doesn't have sleep apnea now, I would worry about the situation going on into the future.
All right, Ben Patrick, you know what to do. Call up Mike Mew today.
Well, yeah. I don't know if I've got. I think at his age that's surgery.
Surgery. So because I have had you talk about all these different celebrities, I figure it's fair that you should ask. I should ask you about my face. What can you tell me about my face?
You've got good muscle tone. You've got good strength in your mouth. You tend to hang your mouth open with the tongue between your teeth too much of the time. So for you, you've got the classic balance most people have got. So most people in the modern world, your tongue's not on the roof of your mouth in your top jaw. It sits slightly between your teeth, like this. That's how you rest. You're going to rest like this. You have to use a certain amount of muscular effort to maintain lip seal. You've got these two lines. Oh, hang around. No, yeah. Okay, I saw your call. Sorry, I've still been interviewed. Then I've got a meeting. Then I'll come home after that. Okay. Come. Right, my wife.
Can I just restart that sentence, like something on my face?
So okay. So where are we? So when I'm looking at your face, your lips turn down a little bit like this. Yeah, they turn down because the face has dropped. You see, like this. Yeah, but you've got good cheekbones here because you've got good muscles. Now, you know, the risk of being, we're talking about people's faces. This is personal, but you've got fairly good. You've got for your tongue effect is not so good, but your muscle effect on relative terms is better. So because your relative term better, you're being quite you're gritting your teeth quite solidly. But of course, it gives you that faintly more masculine look. Okay, so you've got a faintly solid look. You know, girls should always have their tongue. You know, girls always look better with more maxilla. For some reason, and if you need to work much more, everyone generally needs to work on their tongue more. Okay, but guys can look quite good with strong jaws. Girls, if they strong jaws and they don't have good mid faces, it just looks a little masculine.
So if I have good tongue posture, so I've been working on tongue posture ever since I found you about 2 weeks ago. I'm 28 now. How long do you think, if ever, do you think it would take for me to really shape my face so it's more attractive?
Well, remember, I'm going to convert your term more attractive to healthier.
Healthier, yeah, sure.
Because I'm trying to make your face healthier. You want more attractive. I'm only using attractive as a barometer of how healthy your face is. So if you're going to work to getting your face more attractive, which is healthier, then you're going to, well, I think over 25 it's more difficult, partly because you have less growth hormones in your system, but partly because you're more set in your ways. Old dogs, new tricks. If you had a stroke at 80 years old, you could change relatively quickly. So, and it doesn't seem to change that radically. You know, again, I'd like to analyze these things because I'm coming in from an angle no one's thought of before in medicine. So I think that anyone could change relative, but it's inside that's the problem.
Oh, that's easy.
Now,
okay.
Also,
So
also you have structural, you know, because you're narrow, you're going to struggle to get your tongue in the roof of the mouth. Okay, so that
it touches the sides of the teeth a little bit.
Yeah. So now you've almost got structural memory as well. So the same way you can't do this, you can't get your tongue up. Because those two things, both reducing volume, is bringing your teeth together and tipping your head back. And it's hard because it's intrinsically uncomfortable, because the most important thing in your life is breathing. So what you're going to do is compromise your breathing or embarrass your breathing and hold that for a little bit, get a little bit of change and carry on. You know, I think some people may benefit from getting a little bit of assistance. And the type of assistance I'd usually recommend is something like an ALF treatment, ALF, Advanced Lightweight Functional Treatment, but only have very mild force just to help you make progress.
Mm-hmm.
And then do that for a decade, and you should get a little bit of improvement.
I've noticed that I have some bags under my eyes sometimes. Is that due to my facial structure, like my cheekbones maybe not being pointed out enough?
Yeah, the higher cheekbones, the less that's noticed. Yes, the bags get discolored because of other things, but the fact that anything there exists is because your maxilla's dropped down. Like I've got bags under my eyes.
Okay.
But I've had kids who I've treated who get reverse bags. The cheekbones are so high, you know, you wonder if they can see over them.
Yep.
Now I've got to go, and I've got to go urgently because I've got to.
Thank you so much for for coming on this podcast.
That's
Mike.
okay.
I had a great time.
Yeah, I hope that was helpful. You know, it seems to me I'm saying the same old thing. I'm a bit of a one-trick pony, but it's an important trick.
All right, support Mike Mew on Patreon. Check out just check out mewing, Mike Mew, whatever you want to do on Google.
Yeah, and go to prevent crooked teeth.
Prevent crooked teeth.
That's what it's going to be.
All right, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, all right, bye.